Like a pit crew up here.
So thank you, everyone. We decided we're going to let the panelists introduce themselves, just because I do a terrible job of it, given the track records and the fact that everybody probably knows them as industry luminaries. But we're going to say a couple comments. One, big shout out to the ETS team for this week. I've been fortunate enough to be here since the beginning, 2011, and I don't think I felt literally the energy in the room since we originally saw Steve Wozniak come down the Paramount Theater on the Segway. But we do have, fortunate to have, I know somebody in this crowd will fact check me, the 3 largest municipals in the U.S. represented by their respective leaders. So, Paul, if you could get started, give us a little bit about your background and about SMUD.
Okay. Well, first of all, I too actually want to thank ETS for putting this kind of wonderful conference. Certainly has learned a lot and really what the industry is going, and really about what we need to do as a utility and how we need to transform our business. But a little bit about SMUD. In SMUD, we're the 6th largest public power, in the U.S., and we serve about 1.5 million customers. We're situated right in the heart of California, Northern California, in Sacramento, and we are publicly elected. Our board of directors are publicly elected every 4 years. And we run about our revenue is about $1.9 million a year. We're one of the few utility in California that's vertically integrated. So we own our own generation. We own our own generation. We own our own transmission, distribution, and then certainly we own our customer. Not like Texas. And then also one of the things that we also run our balancing authority. So we're not part of the California independent system operators. So we run our own balancing authority along with our Minnesotan brethren in the Northern California. So that's a little bit. And about me personally, I haven't been in the business as long as Andy has, but this is my 40th year working for the utility. I started right out of school. I was actually a student intern at Sacramento State University, thinking I'm going to be there for 2 summers until I graduate from college. Next thing I knew, 40 years later, I'm still here, very excited about it. And in my 40-year period, I've been the Chief Customer Officer, the Chief Power Supply Officer, the Chief Energy Delivery Officer, the Chief Strategy Officer. So one big joke in my house is that I can't keep my job more than 5 years. So it's the same title anyway for more than 5 years. So this is just a little bit about myself, about SMUD. And also SMUD, we serve about 1.5 million people in the Sacramento area. And we have about 620,000 accounts, about 560 residential, 60,000 commercial.
Thank you, Paul. Jackie?
Great, thank you. I would also like to thank Etsy and Jason and Z Prime for putting on another great conference. It's been going on all week, and you guys have done a wonderful job. And it's really nice to be sitting here in person and seeing all of you all in 3D. So great to be here. I also like to say thank you for the opportunity to sit here on this panel today with these 2 exceptional leaders. I feel like I'm in really good company, so thank you. I've worked in the electric and gas industry now for going on next month, it'll be 34 years. I've worked for only 3 organizations. I started my career with Black Hills Corporation, a investor-owned utility and a diversified energy company. Platte River Power Authority, I was the first woman CEO of that organization. And it is a public power joint action agency. And then here in Austin, at Austin Energy, the city's municipally owned utility, and it's actually the 3rd largest municipally owned utility, 7th largest public power utility in the nation. I feel really fortunate about my career, and I think of it as a journey. I like to tell people it's not a career ladder, it's a career lattice. I started out in customer service as a construction services representative, working with customers, large customers, small customers, residential customers, all across the board. And then I moved into engineering, distribution, transmission, production, rates, resource planning, strategic planning, and I just had this kind of weave throughout, and that's what's really helped me get to where I am today. But I think the most valuable thing is that I started out in customer service because that's what's kept me really grounded. and knowing and understanding that we are here to serve our customers. And I think that's why I'm in public power today, because I really believe that that's important. At Austin Energy, we have an extremely dedicated and committed group of talented individuals, and many of them have been participating this week or on panels, and I know some of you are out there in the audience. Could you wave your hand at me? It's kind of hard to see with this light. Oh, we've got Carrie here in the front, we got Stuart in the back, we got Jamie over here. Can't see over here very well, sorry. An old, what's his name? Carl, we got Carl. Thank you all for everything that you do, not only for our customers, but all the communities that we serve and where you live and play. I'm so proud to be able to serve as your general manager, and I'm proud to have you here in the audience today. Austin Energy was formed back in 1895. So we've been around now for 127 years serving customers here in Austin and 14 surrounding communities. Our service territory covers 437 square miles. Half of that is inside the city limits of Austin, half of it is outside the city limits, but 85% of our customers reside here in the Austin city limits. We have an annual budget of $1.4 billion, and we serve over 510,000 customers. Our generation portfolio is very diverse. It includes coal, nuclear, natural gas, wind, solar, and biomass. And currently, we are offsetting 2/3 of our customers' energy consumption with non-carbon or carbon-free resources. We also operate a call center. We provide all of the utility billing services for all of Austin's utilities, so not just Austin Energy. And then we have a team called Customer Energy Solutions, and that includes our solar programs, our key accounts programs, green building, energy efficiency, emerging tech, and everything EV. And then we also operate the city's 311 call system. Austin Energy has been nationally recognized for a very comprehensive customer assistance program where we provide bill discounts, free weatherization, we protect our medically vulnerable customers, and we partner with 56 agencies to actually provide our customers with wraparound services. Some of the things that we're currently focused on are sustainability. We're on a path to be carbon-free by 2035. Focusing on customer experience. You know, we used to talk about customer satisfaction, and now we know we need to meet our customers where they are. And we need to make sure that we're looking at things through a lens of equity, that our workforce looks like our communities, the communities that we're serving, and that our programs are available so that no one is really left out. We look at innovation and optimization. So how do we take technologies, the emerging technologies, and how do we integrate them in with the resources that we have, and then how do we optimize them? How do we take things like solar and battery storage and integrate those at the distribution level, at the transmission level, and then integrate it with the market and the market signals, because we operate as a vertically integrated utility, but we participate fully in the ERCOT market. Resilience. We've seen more severe weather events. We've had significant ones here in the ERCOT region. We know that we have to be more resilient. We have to harden our infrastructure. We need to make sure that we're partnering with our customers so that they can be more resilient. Let them have distributed energy resources and then figure out how to integrate those. And then be an enabler of electrification, because we know there's a cleaner path forward, and that's going to be important as it is in our buildings, but also with electric transportation and electrifying that.
Thank you, Jackie. Rudy Garza.
Well, good morning. I'm sitting up here with two leaders that I really look up to. You know, I've got the song, the Sesame Street song in my head. One of these things is not like the others. I'm the newest. I'm the newbie up here, and I'll tell them that I pay a lot of attention to the things that they're doing, because by and large, these are two of the best leaders in the public power sector who've got a lot of skins on the wall, and I appreciate being up here with y'all very much. Rudy Garza, I am the interim president and CEO of Cps Energy. I've been in the role now for a little over 5 months. It's like dog years. I feel like I've been in there longer than that. And we've been through some really challenging times, transitionally over the last, really over the last year, but the last couple of years have been rough on everybody, I think, in our industry. I do want to take a moment and thank Jason and Ricky and all of the Z Prime team for always including us. These are great events, and just being around other thought leaders in our industry who are thinking about the future is really, really where CPS Energy wants to be. I want to take a moment, as Jackie did, and thank my team that's in the room. If you're a CPS Energy leader, please raise your hand and be recognized. We couldn't do it without you. And of course, my vice chair of our board, we've got a independent board, 5 members. The mayor is one of our board members, and our vice chair, Janie Gonzalez, is in the room, and she's always so supportive, certainly supportive of me, but just loves our employees and does everything she can to be supportive. CPS Energy, we are the largest electric and gas combined utility in the country. I think LADWP is a little bigger than us on the electric side, a little bigger. They're bigger than us on the electric side, and Philly is bigger than us on the gas side. But combined, we're the largest in the country. We've got 1.2 million individual meters, about 900,000 electric customers, 375,000 natural gas customers, $3 billion in revenue a year. We've got $15 billion in assets that we manage on behalf of our community, 3,000 employees. So we are quite the beast in terms of an organization to be responsible for. As Jackie said, I've been in both the public and private sector over the course of my careers. Spent 15 years out of college, like Paul. I was I started interning with TXU up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. After my freshman year at UT, I'm a double E from UT. I've got my MBA from North Texas. But I started working for TXU as a summer engineering intern, and they moved me around about every 12 to 18 months. Even once I got out of college, I was in a different role, and they're still looking for something that I can actually do effectively. Now I'm in the CEO role, so it's all kind of on a whole different level. But having kind of perspectives from both the public and private sector is really, really interesting. At CPS Energy, what I love about public power is that I run into my customers at the HEB, our local grocery store. I run into them at the soccer games. I run into them, at board meetings and at my kids' school. And I think that's really the beauty of public power is that, I was at a soccer game one time, and one of my kids' friends' moms comes up to me and tells me in Spanish, hey, I know you work for CPS Energy. My mom's been without gas because she's got a problem in her house, for the last week and a half. Is there anything you can do to help us? And we were able to get one of our suppliers to donate services to get customers back on, and we do that on a regular basis. Carmen Nielsen, my VP over one of our customer engagement groups, does a great job of chasing those things down. And that's the benefit of public power, is that we're there, for our customers. We really are right now focused on being the most innovative utility that we can be. We pretty much have the same mix as Jackie does. Jackie and I, trade spots as number one, on the solar resource, list here in Texas. I'm about to, sign 900 megawatts worth of contracts, Jackie. So you got a little work to do there. But we are really in all of the above, energy, provider. We're having to make some really difficult decisions right now. We've got, some newer coal units that the community just wants us, to get off of, with the whole climate change dilemma that we're all dealing with as an industry. And so we got to figure out how to do that, in a way that keeps us reliable and affordable, and continues to allow us to focus on being the best, the best utility we can be. I really liked the last presentation that was given. My vice chair and I, she's a technology wonk. If you ever want to talk technology, she talks about machine learning and things like that, all the time, and is always pushing me to learn more about digital transformation. But the model that was shown is really, he kind of put up what's in my head in terms of how we start to think about utilizing distributed resources as, a true generation source so that we don't have to build as much base load, because quite frankly, there's 40,000, megawatts worth of solar in the planning stages in ERCOT in our market right now, which means that dispatchable power sources are gonna be valued differently in the future. And how do we ensure that our resources, are kind of in the mix? So there's a lot of transformation happening. We're doing our very best to be at the forefront of that for our customers. San Antonio, most people don't think of San Antonio as a large city, but we're the 7th largest city in the country. I've got 2 million residents in my community. I serve the city of San Antonio and 31 other communities, across our region, and we'll have 3 million people in San Antonio within the next, 10, 12, 15 years. We'll have another million customers, or another million residents. So we are growing literally in every direction right now. We have no geographical constraints whatsoever, and not everybody can move to Austin, so they're quickly coming to San Antonio,
They're trying.
to our community. So anyway, I'm very glad to be here. I appreciate y'all being here today, and look forward to the conversation.
Guys, thank you, everyone. And Andy, big shout out. We couldn't have, I don't think, asked for a better setup for this panel than your presentation. So thanks for that. Take a slight trip down memory lane. So 2011, the big talking point at ETS was that the VC investment had just in the electric industry, kind of associated ecosystem, had just eclipsed the comparative and adjusted dollars investment in the telecom industry. So we were poised for explosive growth in 2011. Well, the dark side of that story, it generally takes 7 to 10 years from when the VCs turn on the spigot to actually start seeing these products and services at a scale level that can be purchased at retail. And now we're seeing on the Super Bowl a commercial for plug my truck in and power my house. That's not an expectation for me. So my question to the panel is, all this technology is coming in to be a game changer. You have other people out there really setting expectations. And one other note, I have not heard the term ratepayer this entire week. So thank everyone for that. But again, these changing customer expectations, what are y'all doing to kind of change the game around meeting these customer expectations and kind of involving this new ecosystem of the technologies coming in? And Jackie, you look like you're ready to.
Well, we really, when we talk about customer experience now instead of customer satisfaction, and really coming and knowing where our customers are, and their expectations are changing because they don't compare us to other utility companies. Our customers are comparing us to, the Amazons, the curbside delivery, the Domino's. Think about Domino's, right? They have an app. You can order your pizza, you can know that it's made, you can see that it's gone in the oven, you know when it's gone in the delivery vehicle, you can follow the delivery vehicle, and you know when to open your door because you know that pizza is at your door. Well, our customers are expecting those same kinds of services from us. So we have to adapt and we have to adopt technology that is going to let us meet our customers where they are. So our outage maps, our customer portals, and different tools like that, the things that can give them information real time about their energy consumption with the use of smart meters, data, using that data to be predictive, and using intelligent telephone systems so that when customers call in, we still have a lot of customers that like to pick up the phone and call us, that we can have some analysis and have information readily available to that person who answers the phone and be responsive to them. So it's really a changing dynamic. And in order to really understand that, we have to meet our customers where they are, like I said, and we have to be out there and we have to be listening, and then we have to make sure we're hearing what it is that they're asking of us.
So Rudy, I know kind of from personal experience that CPS has been pouring a lot of resources, into this thing, especially post-storm. How do we wrap our customers in this wonderful warm blanket, literally? Comments?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we saw after post Winter Storm Uri was the expectation from our community that we do better communicating with them. And so right now, CPS Energy is communicating with our customers every which way possible, and we're still not getting to all of them. One of the things that, and I think you all saw a video from Deanna, one of my EVPs over customer success, but one of the things that we started doing during the pandemic is we started calling customers and not shaking them down to pay their bills necessarily. We were calling, asking them, hey, how are you doing? What can we do to be helpful? Let's get you on a billing plan so you can take the stress of paying your electric and gas bill off the table. That's resulted in close to $55 million of direct bill payment assistance just because we've been calling customers. So we've made hundreds of thousands of phone calls to customers that, most utilities aren't doing that kind of direct engagement. We recently got allotted $20 million from our city council in San Antonio to help with direct bill payment assistance for the most vulnerable in San Antonio so that we can get them caught up as we've resumed disconnects in our community. And, one of the things that we got challenged with was how are you going to get to those who are, mobility challenged? The elderly who don't come out of their homes. How are we going to get assistance to them? I was like, you know what? Let's start knocking on doors. And so we've got a team now of folks that are starting in the highest utility burden census tracts in our community. We worked with some local organizations. We figured out where those folks were, and we're knocking on doors. And that's led to close to, I think we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 of that $20 million program now because we're doing everything we can. So Jackie's right. The old adage of making our customers come to us in the way we want them, to engage with us is just over. If you think that's the future of our business, you're going to be really, really, unsuccessful. We got to meet our customers where they are. I couldn't agree with what Jackie said more. And that's going to take every ounce of technology. It's going to take new school technology and old school methods of knocking on doors and calling folks. Because in San Antonio, in particular, 60% of our customer base is economically, disadvantaged of some kind. Not everybody has access, to Wi-Fi and the things that we enjoy, most of us enjoy. A lot of our community, there's a huge digital divide, so you can't assume that everybody's going to have a computer and be able, to get online and look at their bill. Some folks, it's going to be old school, and you're going to have to deal with both of those dynamics to ensure you're getting every customer that needs your help.
So, Paul, I want to take you in a little bit different direction, but I have to say this gentleman here never disappoints in that he always gives me something to take away from this conference, and he did it last night. So to kind of preface that, we're getting into this world where, every company is an energy company, and literally every residence can be a utility, right? I can have generation, I can have storage, down at my individual residence level. Elizabeth Brock from Center Point yesterday said something that I almost fell out of my chair on. We can't do this alone. And that's not something you normally hear from a utility, right? We do things alone a lot. Like, we like the control, we like the safety. But then, Paul, we were talking about that last night, and you brought up this phrase of the utility as the conductor. So we've got this new evolving ecosystem, all these technologies, and just could you comment on where do you see utilities' role in kind of orchestrating all this so it does stay safe, secure, reliable, and sustainable?
So we're here for our customers, and we're here for our community. So I think I absolutely agree, with what Annie said. The traditional business model of utilities needs to transform, right? Every single customer now, because of the fact that you have technologies, every single customer now can become a prosumer. And so one of the greatest challenge right now for SMUD, our board, I think when they recognize our board, one of our board of director, Nancy Bowie Thompson is here. Sacramento, I think, being in the heart of California, is probably have one of the most aggressive climate change policies in the nations. But not only that, Sacramento County, city, and our board has adopted a climate emergency declaration on the July of 2020. So what that actually gave SMUD the ability to do is to say, we want to draw a line in the sand. We are, I think, one of the first utilities in the nation to actually adopt, we were going to try to get to absolute zero by 2030. Not net zero, absolute zero. So we are committed to remove all our carbon emissions from our power plants, which is about 2 million metric tons, from our 5 gas-fired plants by 2030. And in addition to that, unlike what I'm kind of jealous when I hear about San Antonio and Austin, that their load is growing. Sacramento, our load is actually declining since 2006. And that's not a surprise, because we have one of the most aggressive energy efficiency targets of anywhere, I think, in the nation. We're, by state mandate, we were supposed to reduce 1% of our load through energy efficiency every year about 8 years ago. So now, SMUD being the overachiever that we are, we've been reducing our load at least 1.5% per year, some year 2% by mandate from our board. And not surprisingly, we've been adding about 300 megawatts of rooftop solar. And SMUD's peak back in 2006 was 3,300 megawatts. Even with the hot summer that we had, the heat wave last year, was only 3,100 megawatts. So we need to really think about how do you have what we call beneficial load growth. And if you seriously think about decarbonizing and talk about carbon, you cannot not talk about both transportation and, and building electrification. Because just to give you a point of context, SMUD actually emits about 2 million metric tons of carbon a year from our power plants, but the building and transportation emits about 8 million metric tons of carbon. So I think I'm going to get back to your question. So if you think about now, with every single customers being able through technology becomes a prosumer, we really have to radically change our relationship with our customers. In fact, SMUD and our board of directors actually really have a new vision. We actually declare a new vision. We want to be a powerful partner for inclusive zero carbon economy, because we can't get there alone. And one of the pillars that we have getting there is really taking advantage of innovation. First, we need to actually have innovations on the utility side. So we're looking at, if you want to transition your power plants, you need to look at new technologies like, combined energies with carbon capture and sequestration. You want to think about long duration batteries. You want to talk about pump storage. And we even need deploying technologies to using drones to increase O&M. So if you think about, and then we're also investing heavily on the distribution side. We invested $20 million on what we called a distribution energy resource management system, or DERMS, and then advanced distribution management systems. Because we really want to do what Andy was talking about. We want to get ahead of those millions and billions of connected devices at our customer side. So if you think about, what the role utility needs to play going into the future, if you think about really the value chain, right? Customers are investing. Andy, I love what you said. The VCs, customers are spending more than the utilities on the connected devices. Our customers are putting rooftop solar in, they're putting batteries in, they're putting smart thermostats, smart appliances. So they're actually, doing more investment in the utility to add advances to the grid of the future. So if you think about so we're fortunate. SMUD is still a vertically integrated utility, as I said earlier. We run our balancing authority, we own our own generation, we own our own distribution, and then we also own our customer relationship, because California, we don't have a retail competition like Texas does. So if you think about the role of the utility, we're in the best position to unlock the value, right? When customer investing, how can we actually optimize their investments to benefit the distribution system, the transmission system, the generation system, and the power market? Because we are completely connected. So it doesn't matter to us where the benefits comes from. right? If we can actually benefit the customers, because it actually brings benefit to the distribution and the transmission, we can actually take the benefit and give it to the customer and benefit, the customer. Or if the customer can actually work and partner with the utility, we can give them benefits. And a very good example of that is something I think we're the only one in the nation right now called storage share. So Electrify America was installing DC fast chargers in our community. And they were going to put batteries in for demand arbitrage. So we said, when we talked to them, we said, well, the area you're putting it in, we have excess capacity. But if you actually, partner with us and put the batteries where it's actually needed, in one of the areas, and not only that, we can actually provide training to disadvantaged communities. That's actually a better deal for both of us. So we actually signed a contract with them. We put in a 4 megawatt utility scale storage, battery storage, and they bought about 1.5 megawatt of that. So that's a very good example, and I think really where, a utility can play that, I'm going to say the conductor, right? Because we really have a complete view, a 360 view of really what the customer is. And one of the things that, I think is pretty, unique for SMUD is that our board of directors, to our strict directions, say everything that we do, we have a 95% customer sat. And this is actually even including outage. So, and one of the things that, I think is pretty unique for, being public power, our board of directors are elected officials, and we conduct everything in public. So we have about 8 either committee meetings or board meetings a month. And our meeting starts at 5:30 at night. And each of our customers can come to speak 3 minutes on the items, and then on 3 items per night. So this is about 10 minutes. So you can do the math. If 50 people are not happy with you and come to speak at the board, none of us are going home at all to the next morning. So I think this is really one of the things that I think utilities have to transform. We really have to actually invest in technologies, not only on the grid side, but technologies also on the customer side, and actually create that partnerships. Because one of the, I think, great challenges right now for any utility, I think you hear really a lot talk about today about equity, right? Really when you take about all these new technologies and new devices, all those takes resources. And one of the things, the big challenges for, I think, us in this room, who really work for the customer, work for the, for the community, is that how do you actually bring those technologies, those benefits to everyone in the community, not just those people resources? And how do you actually make sure that, us as utility play that, I'm going to say that the maestro, the conductor, to optimize what the customer's putting in, optimize what technology is bringing to the utility side, and then really kind of optimize among the whole value chain and really kind of improve the life and the vitality of the community that we serve.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for, I think that utility as a conductor is just a great concept. Now, you all being municipals, you're fortunate enough to spend a lot of time and have an occasional conversation with your respective cities. So from a game-changing perspective, with all these new technologies coming in, with the ecosystem expanding, with all the new customer expectations and customer involvements, like in particular my son who tells me my generation ruined the planet, he has to fix it. We had a long talk about that. We're okay now. But your interactions with your respective cities, this kind of intersection of electrification, mobility, and smart cities, how do you see that changing the game going forward? Rudy?
Well, we had the pleasure of just running through a rate case process at our city council. And so I got 18 hours worth of time spent at the podium answering questions and getting feedback. And, what I say is, my city council, our city manager, our mayor, they don't want to run CPS Energy, right? What they want is for us to listen to the feedback they have to say, and then, try to go and do our best to be responsive to those community, conversations. Jackie, I know you're just about to start your process. Go with God. That is now my 4th rate case I've been through, both in the private and the public sector, and none of them are ever fun. Nobody wants to ever need to raise rates on your customers, but it's necessary when you're in the transitional state that we're in to try to, make the right investments and keep rates affordable. So what we try to do is just, right now my tagline, when I talk to the community is I'm trying to connect with our customers. I want to listen to what they have to say, and then I want to serve them in the way that they expect their utility to be of service to them. And, if we try to do those things as a municipally owned utility, then we're going to be successful, whether the council members and our elected officials are coming out of left field or not, whether their ideas are implementable now or implementable in the future. It's important that you let them get their ideas out. You acknowledge what it is that you heard, and then you go try to do something with it. And so at Cps Energy, it's not rocket science. It really isn't. We're just trying to be responsive and do the best job that we can do. And and that's all we can do for a growing community like we're in. We've been in a ditch, quite frankly, with respect to how our customers feel about our performance during Uri. The entire state of Texas had a horrible experience. My customers had a horrible experience. I know Jackie's customers had a horrible experience. All throughout the Midwestern United States, we all had the same experience. And we're going to pay for it, at least here in San Antonio, for the next 25 years, the $1 billion fuel cost. So they're rightfully upset with us. I liken it to, it's like, an old, ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend that, really loves you, but they're really upset with you, for whatever you did. And we've got some work to do to get over that, right? But we're going to do it one step at a time, and it starts with listening to your community.
Jackie, you want to pile on?
I'll just add that, there are a lot of people that are moving to Austin, but through the great work that our team has done with energy efficiency, green building, which was the predecessor to LEED certification for buildings now, we've really been able to curb load growth. So while we have more customers and our customer count continues to go up, we have very flat load growth. And so what we're looking at right now is we have an antiquated rate system in place. It was based on how people used energy back in 2009. If you look at, even going back just from 2012 to 2021, and you look at houses built in those timeframes or multifamily homes built in those timeframes, customers are using half the amount of energy in these new homes and new condos and new multifamily. And we're seeing this transition into multifamily from single-family homes. So more people are living in multifamily or condos, apartments than they are in single-family homes. And that's impacting our ability to cover our costs because our rate structures are outdated. And you almost have to look at some type of decoupling when you have fixed costs, the wires, the poles, the transformers, the substations, and all of those things that you have to keep customers connected. And when, the distributed energy resources, solar panels, aren't working, the sun's not shining, the battery's not, doesn't have more than an hour to discharge, what's going to make up? You still have to have that infrastructure. You have to be able to pay for it, and you can't have the people who can afford these things be subsidized by the people who can't afford them. And so you have to look at that equity lens on the rate structure as well and have some way or mechanism to be able to waive some of those costs so that you're not treating those people that can't afford it without the respect and the need to help them so that their energy burden isn't so much. So that's the challenge that we're seeing right now, is being able to accommodate these things, being able to harden our systems, to upgrade our systems, to deploy technologies, to better manage things. And costs are going like this, load is like this, and our fixed costs are being recovered on kilowatt-hour charges. So we're looking at structural changes to be able to accommodate that.
That's always the question. How do you pay for it? Well, we talked a little bit about the past, a little bit about the present. I'm going to do a little bit of a time check, so I'd love to I see people kind of itching in their seats to ask some questions, but I got one last question for each of you to comment on, is just this whole topic of changing the game. What do you see as the biggest potential game changer it can be in generation, supply, customer experience, new technologies, going forward? I know it could be a long question, so I ask you to kind of tighten it up a little bit. But Paul, what do you see as for SMUD? What's the thing you're most excited about on the horizon?
I think the biggest game changer is really, making our community and our customer a partner, a true partner in this energy transition. So that means we really have to rethink about our relationship with the customer instead of just being the energy supplier. We really need to think about really being an energy services provider. So do we need to come up with new programs and new services like charging as a service, fleet as a service? Do we even think about, providing, by even getting into the electric vehicle world in terms of changing that relationship? But even more importantly is changing the relationship really with the regulators and the cities and the counties that we serve to make sure that they become part of the partner. So just when we actually put together our 2030 zero carbon plan, to get to absolute zero by 2030, we also actually asked them what are some of the most really important things. And so, with that, we put a couple guardrails in, which is making sure that we maintain our world-class reliability through technology advancements. Mm-hmm. We also need to make sure that we keep our rates affordable. So that means we're going to do all this and keeping our rate increases less or equals to inflation. Currently right now that our rates is about 45% cheaper than our neighboring IOU utilities. So 45, and our annual revenue is about $1.8 billion. So I think really one of the key things, the biggest game changer is that the utility must think of ourselves and transform ourselves to be that engaged partner with the customer, but also do it in a way that I think exactly what Jackie said is about the equity lens. How do you actually create and be very intentional about the investment that we do benefits, those disadvantaged communities and making sure that, you actually look at the whole ecosystems from inclusive economic development to inclusive workforce development to making sure that all those great jobs that you have coming down the pike, all those thousands, tens of thousands of DC fast chargers or charging infrastructure or building electrification, right? Or even the new solar installations. How do they make sure that, those people in the community becomes those workforce of the future is really what I think is the biggest game changer is radically changing the relationship that we have right now instead of just being an electricity provider, that we become a vital partner with our customer and our cities and counties, to be that inclusive partner, right? Making sure that no community get left behind. I think that is probably every utility needs to think about, with the equity lens, like using technologies, to really increase your capabilities, but really leveraging the relationships and making sure that you have alignment with your customers and the cities and counties and the regulators so that everybody's kind of rolling the boat in the same direction and not really, having somebody, really kind of, I'm going to say, creating more frictions, on the system, because I think going forward is really where I think utilities need to focus our efforts on.
Jackie, you want to just go to...
Try to keep it short. I'm going to say storage. That has to be a breakthrough, and environmentally responsible long-duration storage, and that will get us to a decarbonized future.
Okay.
Well, I think the future is about meeting our customers where they are, and we've spent a lot of time talking about that today. We're moving from, as our previous speaker said, the model that we've built our entire industry on is rapidly evolving. I don't know that it's dead yet, but it's, certainly, changing. And so, we've got to move from a one-directional push system to a transactional system where you have puts and takes and you value contributions from customers to your system differently. And so, the work that Jackie's doing, quite frankly, we're looking at what Austin Energy has done with their rate structure for San Antonio, because the equity lens Paul talked about is absolutely an issue. I've got customers in San Antonio whose utility burden is 30%, when it should be somewhere in the 3 to 6% range. That is unacceptable. As a leader of our utility, we got to do something about that. And so it just means we've got to look at the world differently and accept the fact that customers are going to do what customers want to do, regardless of what we think about it. We don't control that anymore. And so we got to figure out a way we're going to stay relevant. And right now, that's, everything that we're doing at CPS Energy right now is trying to figure out what our customers want and how can we meet them there so that we can stay relevant. If our customers want resiliency service, then I want to have a product or service I can offer them to accomplish that goal. If there's reliability challenges we got to deal with, I want to work together with our customers to figure those things out. And if they want, solar or storage in their own homes, then I got to figure out a way that I can continue to serve them when that infrastructure is not there. All the things we talked about is all surrounding customer behavior and how we're going to figure out a way to stay relevant, and that's what CPS Energy is trying to do right now.
Yeah, thank y'all. We got one more question. I'm going to do one little summation here. I'm going to call it a personal thank you to this group because y'all have all been an inspiration for me, for the industry. And I always marvel at y'all's ability to let your teams be who they are, yet still get the best out of the teams and the best out of your organizations and help this old utility boat go a little bit faster. So with that, I think we got time for maybe one, maybe two questions in the audience. And I can't really see. I've got one back there in the middle, Ricky.
Hi, my name's Dean, and I actually work for Teradata in data warehousing and cloud storage. I hear a lot that you're talking about advancements in technology, but at the core of any technology is what you store any of your data or your apps on. So how important it is to you as a C-suite person for having the best utilization of your platform and your ecosystem to make everything operate and run smoothly as possible. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'll take a stab at that. And I think that what you're asking is, we need if we're going to manage our system and manage the technology of the future and integrate all these things and meet our customers' expectations, then we have to have a platform that securely protects data but allows us to do the analytics that we need so that we can make better decisions, right? So we have a group called Data Acquisition and Business Intelligence because we understand how important that is. And that's why we're using new technologies in our IVR systems for our customer service representatives to have some artificial intelligence, if you will, when a call comes in, to be able to be more responsive in a timely manner and meet their needs. So it's very critical, and protection of that data is even more critical, and making sure that we are managing that to the best of our ability to make the best investment decisions, the best decisions for our customers, and provide reliable and affordable service to them. Meet them where they are. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got our own data center at CPS Energy like most utilities do because, I'm still not quite comfortable uploading my information to the cloud. There's certain information that we can do that with, but there's others that, I got to have, in hardened infrastructure. And so we've got a whole data analytics, group that all they do is, use data to try to help solve problems. I have some of the smartest meter techs in our industry that can see a signature and tell when we're about to have a transformer go down or we're having some issue that we can get it out in front of. We're not anywhere where we need to be yet. I mean, we're just scratching the surface of our capabilities, but I'm encouraged that we have smart people that understand how data patterns and data signatures can be helpful to our operation, and we're moving in the right direction, but we're not moving quite as quickly as I'd like us to move, but we're getting there.
So it's very similar to SMUD. So we actually have smart meters in every single house, and we're actually heavily investing in what Internet of Things in terms of getting that visibility, into a common platform, what we're going to call Customer 360. And we're also investing in, what I said earlier on the grid side. So we're putting in technology for the advanced distribution management systems and the DERMS, distribution energy resource management system, so that we can actually take what the customer has real time, understanding what the load is and what the generation capability is, translate it into our distribution system, what the operation impacts, and then taking it all the way to transmission, generation, and ultimately into the power market. So we can actually think about that to transaction to the future, that customer becomes part of the resource stack, but real time, and making sure that we make sure that obviously it's got to be secure from cybersecurity attacks, but also making sure that they help with the resiliencies of the grid itself and not really being a burden.
Well, folks, I think that's a wrap. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our distinguished panelists.
All right, thank you to our public power game changers. It is now time for our networking break.